surrounded, enclosed by his creation. He's not a spirit. He cannot be painted or carved. No images can be made of him. He is beyond man's comprehension. We worship him through his attributes, which he has revealed to us, in that he is all merciful, he accepts repentance, he is just, etc. We worship him through these attributes. Christians ask, but don't you make a picture? Don't you have a picture in your mind when you worship God? How can you worship God without this picture? The point is, once a man makes a picture in his mind of God, he is in fact making God like his creation. Because our minds can only picture the things which we have seen. And God cannot be seen in this life. The other aspect of Prophet Jesus' message was his sunnah, his way. There's a common quote from the Bible wherein people like to say that Jesus said, "No one comes to the Father except by me. I am the way." This is evidence. They claim that Jesus is God. But that's not the case. This is not what Jesus was talking about. If these words are to be held true. What this means is that one cannot worship God except by the way which has been defined by the prophets of God. Jesus emphasized to his disciples, his followers, that they could only worship God by the way which he had taught them. Similarly, we find in the statements of the last of the prophets, Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be on him, where he has said very clearly, "ما تركت شيئا يقربكم إلى الله إلا وأمرتكم به." I have left nothing which will bring you closer to God, except that I have commanded you to do it. He has pointed the way, and his way is the only way, as was the way of the prophets before him. As such, he said, "Man ahdatha fi amrina ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad." Whoever adds anything new to the religion of Islam, starts to make their own way of worshipping God, it is not acceptable to God. So the way of the Prophet is the only way to God. So what remains is for us to look at the way of Prophet Jesus. We find, as is recorded in the New Testament, that Jesus was circumcised. He was a Jew, and he was circumcised. This was a part of his way. But today we find Christians, for the most part, not getting circumcised because of a rationale introduced by Paul, wherein he said that circumcision was circumcision of the heart. It was his interpretation. But Jesus was not circumcised by the heart, and he didn't say anything about circumcision of the heart. He was circumcised, in fact. So if one is to follow the way of Jesus, one must be circumcised. And we see that the people around the world who insist on circumcision are those who call themselves to be Muslims. So we can say that they are following the way of Jesus. Furthermore, Jesus did not eat pork. He was a Jew, and he did not eat pork. He came, as he said, to fulfill the law, to uphold it, not to break it. So he didn't eat pork. But unfortunately, most people who call themselves Christians today, they not only eat it, they raise it, they love it, they have pictures of it, they praise it, they make cartoons about it. You know, the pig is endeared. Porky pig. So, we can say without a doubt that those who call themselves to be Christians, followers of Christ, are not in fact following Christ. And we find that the people who insist on not eating pork are those who call themselves Muslims. They are in fact following the way of Jesus Christ. Furthermore, we find in Matthew 26, verse 39, when Jesus went up to the Garden of Gethsemane, it said, and going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed. He fell on his face and prayed. When we look around the Christian world, we find Christians kneeling down, holding their hands up, in a posture which cannot be ascribed to Jesus. And the only people that we find consistently in their prayer, falling down on their faces in prayer, are those who call themselves Muslims. So again, we can say, without a doubt, that the way of Prophet Jesus is not being followed by Christendom, but is in fact being followed by those who call themselves Muslims, those who submit to the will of God. And this falling down on the face in prayer is not something which Jesus brought, was new. It is something which can be found as a part of the practice of the earlier prophets. Prophet Abraham, in Genesis 17, verse 3, falls down on his face and prays. Moses and Aaron, in Numbers 20, verse 6, as well as Numbers 16, verse 22, fall on their faces in prayer. Elijah, in 1 Kings 18, verse 42, falls on his face and prays. And Joshua, in Joshua 5, verse 14, and Joshua 7, verse 6, falls on his face in prayer. This is the way of the prophets. As God has said in the Quran, very clearly, whoever obeys the prophet has obeyed God. And it is only by that way that those who claim to follow Jesus will gain the salvation which he brought in the message of all the prophets before him, and that of the last of the prophets. May God's peace and blessings be on all of them. So, what we can say in conclusion is that Jesus was a prophet of God, without a doubt. And his message was that of Islam. Submission to the will of God. Read the final revelation, the Quran. Read it so that you may judge for yourself what was the message of Jesus, and in that way you may gain the salvation which I'm sure each and every one of us seeks in this life. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.